they've had a technician or a service company that's come in and said, "Oh, you need to replace that. Oh, you need to replace that." And it's this it's like on repeat lately. And I say lately, but it's over the last 10 years. Is this, well, we don't fix those anymore.
Make Trades Great Again is a podcast that focuses on the trades industry, covering topics relevant to professionals in fields like plumbing, heating, and more. Hosted by seasoned tradespeople, the show delves into the latest industry trends, tools, techniques, and business insights. It aims to provide practical advice, share experiences, and inspire those in the trades to excel in their craft and business practices. If you're in the industry, it could be a great resource for tips and insights.
Nice. Thank you, ChatGPT. That was pretty cool. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Make Trades Great Again podcast, the resource for helping the trades be great again.
Yeah.
Good times.
Good times.
Why is it's so interesting that this topic comes up more and more and more.
I know.
Everywhere I go. I mean, we were just saying, there was just a thing yesterday on House Call Pro about it.
Yeah.
There's I don't know. It's just kind of interesting.
It's more than interesting. You're underselling it, man. Yeah. A year ago, I think everybody was a lot nervous about,
oh yeah,
artificial intelligence. I think a year later, people are still a lot nervous about it, right?
Yeah.
But it's definitely not going away anytime soon. And I think there are just so many people out there way smarter than me that are sharing information on how they're using things like AI. In particular, so you just had AI talking into the microphone.
Yeah.
And so tell everybody, like, how did that happen? How did you get that to work? Like, what's going on there?
So, I mean, like many people, I use ChatGPT. And for the longest time, I've just used the free version, right? Just download the app, use it as you like. I don't know, 2 weeks ago, I guess, I got a notification on there. Hey, move to the, what is the plan even called?
Hey,
ChatGPT Plus.
Right, exactly.
And so if you upgrade to Plus, you could use it free for whatever, 2 weeks, I think is what it was. And you got a certain amount of time that you could use it in that trial. Yeah. Like it's like you could use it for the month for free, but if you use this service a lot, we're going to cut you off. Yeah. And part of it is I think it's just, I don't know. They're trying to get you to jump.
They want to make more money.
Yeah. It's totally fine. So the interesting part, this is what they call advanced voice mode. And so it's different than you clicking in the search bar and hitting the little microphone and saying, hey, find me this, or, what can you tell me about this? This is more of a conversation, if you will.
Yeah.
You go in and set it up. I think there's like 6 or 8 voice options.
And I noticed yours is a male. Mine was a female that I chose.
Well, and I had a female at one point, and I was anyway. I was screwing around with it, and I found the dude with the British accent. I'm like, oh, okay, that's whatever. It doesn't matter, right? Like, yeah. I mean, and so certain things, it seems to, I don't know. In any case, it's interesting because it's easy to listen to. It's easy to hear back, and it's a fluent conversation versus you saying, hitting the microphone button and saying, hey, do this, and it replying back with some text, right? That's been AI for everybody for, I don't know, the last couple years, right?
Yeah.
It's very much so like an assisted Google search.
Yeah, exactly. It's it's way different than what we're used to. Can you remember when you first used Google and how like amazed you were? Like, oh my gosh, all this stuff exists on the internet? What's that?
Yeah, and they're like 224 million results in 1.1 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. Like that. Exactly. Now they don't even do that now, do they?
No, the numbers don't go big enough.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, whatever.
You found some stuff. Good luck.
Right. So I too have been paying. I've been paying for a few months. I've been using it for generating things like thumbnails. I've talked about this already in past episodes, but like thumbnails for our YouTube, it's been fun for me. I've been sharing those with you and kind of getting a kick out of some of the results. Admittedly, they're all over the place and a little far out there too. Like you don't always, when it comes to images, you don't always get maybe what you're asking it for, or maybe in your head, there's a disconnect of what you're asking versus what you're thinking. Yeah. And, it is a machine, right? The funny thing I've noticed about like the images, for instance, is it puts text on things like as a default.
Right.
It wants to put
like
signage,
everywhere.
Text, logos. Yes. Everywhere. Like everywhere. There's like so much text and it's all blurry or misspelled or letters are backwards. Like literally there's so many things that are wrong with that aspect of it. And I try to filter that stuff out regenerate that image, no text. Regenerate that image without that red logo, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, we don't see anything. I'm like, okay, whatever. It's not going to do what I want it to. But anyway, the point is I started paying for it too a few months ago because I felt there was value in what I was getting out of it.
Yeah.
So much so that like I'm doing things more than just images. So the other day, well, first of all, you told me about the voicing. I didn't even know it existed.
Right.
And I've started to use it a little bit. And what fascinated me was listening to you, somebody I know so well, get like super jazzed up, excited about this because you're like, I'm driving around town in between calls, having a conversation with ChatGPT. And I'm like, oh boy, what did Andy break? And then you're like, no, you just have to try it. And so I did. And Heather and I were sitting in the office and I'm like, hey, check this out. I'm going to try this for the first time. Andy was telling me about it. And she's kind of smiling like, you guys are crazy. And I did it. And I'm talking to it just like you said, where I'm listening to maybe it answer my first question, but then I interrupt it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Can you tell me more about that? And it like just
seamless
spins on a dime. Yeah. It just immediately just goes into like you and I are talking right now. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I was playing around with this, the thing that it just came up with, right? I have never asked anything about the podcast until this morning. So it doesn't have like any history. I've never asked Google or any function of AI to my knowledge. I've never asked it to explain what the podcast is, right?
Yeah.
So it came up with that on its own. I did ask one of the questions we were having a conversation about what is the best flavor of coffee to have in the morning. While we were I was waiting for you to log in. I was making coffee and I'm like, let's see what ChatGPT says. And, having a conversation about coffee, and it was this in-depth thing about it. And the more time you interact with this conversation, the deeper the conversation is, right? Like it's going off in the weeds and it's going to follow, it's like this big spotlight and we're going to just dive down into what it is that you wanted the information about.
It's crazy.
I said, well, what's the best flavor, or the best brew of coffee to have in the morning? And it's like, blah, blah, blah. And, medium roast and breakfast blends. And this is why. And then I said, well, I like a medium roast. And it's like, that's a great choice. What does it say here? What's your favorite brew method? Do you like to switch it up? And I was like, it's, I like to switch it up sometimes. Sometimes I use a Chemex or a pour over, and then it starts going into how cool and bougie the Chemex is. And I'm just like, what?
This is going to change people's like daily routine. And I hope it doesn't go negative, but like in a bad way, but like people are going to like stop interacting with people. And they're just like, I got ChatGPT, it costs me $20 a month. I don't need a girlfriend.
She tells me how handsome I am.
Yeah. But maybe companionship will come out of it. Yeah, who knows? It seems crazy, but it's not. Yeah. It's not. It's crazy just on its own.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring up real quick as we're on this subject, whether we change subject or not, I don't know. It's up to you. But the way I was using it the other day is not the first time I did it, but it was like more of a complete usage of it. And I was telling you about it afterwards. I just was curious. A while back I did this once and I did it way more completely the other day. I asked it to produce a heat load calculation.
Yeah.
And I didn't prompt it first with the right amount of information, but it told me I didn't. Like, basically it's like, well, you know, in your region, blah, blah, blah. It went into very brief, like, it said
Rule of
basically
thumb.
like,
Yeah.
what's that?
Like a rule of thumb. Like,
Yeah, like a rule of thumb. Yeah. Thank
very
you.
broad.
Yeah. Sorry. I couldn't get the words off my tongue.
Yep.
And then it said, but if you give me more information, I can calculate the heat load per square foot given the volume and information like R values of insulation and wall assemblies, things like that. So what I did is I went into the notes on my computer real quick and I typed in the information off the blueprint.
Right.
Dimensions, I did it just like you and I probably would do a heat load, where I just added up all the exterior walls footage and, you know, gave them the dimensions like in total instead of every individual wall. I didn't go room by room. I did the 2 zones that are this radiant system is going to be is its living space, all one zone.
Yeah.
And then garage, it's a barn dominium. I gave it, you know, the common wall dimension between the two, the design temp, window U values and wall R values, and blown in ceiling, you know, R50 in the ceiling, cellulose, that kind of thing. So I gave it a fair bit of information that probably took me about 10 minutes to type out into my notes. And then I just copied that into ChatGPT in the same conversation we're having. And I didn't even prompt it to do anything. It was just like still there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it, within seconds, spit out a comprehensive manual J heat load calculation. By all accounts, it's probably as accurate as it would ever need to be for the purpose of what I'm doing.
Right.
I'm not designing a ventilation system and, you know, I don't have to split hairs between a 85,000 BTU boiler and a 100,000 BTU, nothing like that.
Right.
I have to produce this heat load calculation for good reason. There's a reason why we do it in the first place, but I have to do it as a formality when I get my permit before I can start this radiant heating system. And oh, by the way, it's spot on. What I had just did my rule of thumb on, it's like 5,000 BTU, within 5,000 BTUs of that. And I'm not going off of my rule of thumb. I'm just saying there's no way that this isn't at least accurate enough. And I admittedly, when I use the manual J for, you know, like when I use like Right Soft or whatever to do it, or Elite software I've used in the past, I'm probably wrong there too. When I'm calculating all the wall assemblies, you know, wind load, all that kind of crap. Right.
Yep.
But it took into consideration the downward loss because it's a radiant system. It put in their perimeter. I mean, it was, dude, I spent $20 for the month's use of this program, and with less input than if I were using like the $300 or the $800 a year subscription, whatever, $300, whatever that Right Soft is, like, it spit out my results. And then I know I'm going on and on about this, but the final thing that sold it for me, and I told you this too in conversation, I got the results and it spits it out. It's just like basically like a Word doc, because you can copy it, right?
Right.
I said, can you put this into an Excel spreadsheet format? And it did. And I was like, oh, print. And then that goes on my application or I saved it as a PDF. You know what I mean? Like, what? Oh my God.
I was asking something the other day. What the heck was it? I'm going to look back here for a second. But anyway, it was something to do with a proposal. You know, hey, you know, help me reword this. You know, I mean, typical AI usage, right?
Yeah.
You know, like I want to write something as a proposal. I don't want it to be super formal, but I want it to be detailed, brief, blah blah blah. And we get, you know, and I'm talking to it at that point, and I'm like, can you copy that to my clipboard? And it's like, no, I can't do that yet. You know, iOS doesn't allow me to, and it was basically, that was what it said, is iOS doesn't allow me to interface with your iOS.
Yeah.
it's that I'm limited in my capabilities based on the fact that iOS doesn't allow me permission, which is, like, oh, interesting. So is this the robot taking over the world concept? Is that the only way we can do it is just not give it permission?
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
it has to follow the rules.
Yeah, because Apple's device will do it for you when their own. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What if I upgrade to the newest device?
Yeah, we talked about that last episode or a couple episodes ago. Actually, It's kind of funny. No, it's a big thing. There's so many different reasons. Like I said in recently an episode, how Jacob, my younger son, is using it to create, recipes. I want it to take less than 20 minutes for these meals, only 5 ingredients. Give me a shopping list, and that shopping list should be under $60. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, it's the money part of it's off, but everything about it is spot on. There's so many uses. We're not even scratching the surface.
No.
I thought the heat load thing was cool. I thought you're asking it like you're using it as a conversation. I need to start doing that a little bit more because I've got, there's no shortage of time driving from here to there where I could be making better use. Like you were saying before we hit record, the troubleshooting.
Yeah.
Asking it like, what is a Navian error code, 305 or
whatever. I mean,
yeah. What's a Renai code 11?
Yep.
And the neat thing is it's not just spitting back a Google result. Like a lot of times you're going to get when you just Google those things where you kind of get the same thing over and over, and they're not always, I don't want to say that they're not correct because oftentimes you're finding the right information if you know how to look for it. But I think with Google, you just get repeated information. And it seems like what I'm getting out of ChatGPT when I ask it questions like that is I'm getting stuff that's out of the manual versus just something that somebody posted in like a random YouTube video.
Right.
That I don't have to spend 14 minutes getting to the point on. Does that make sense?
And that's the thing that I've had issue with lately is, so, I mean, here's a prime example. Yesterday, Miles's van won't start, right?
Yeah.
Don't have a shop that is able to get to it this week. Right.
Right. They're all
so
overrun.
I'm like, okay, here, I got to go be a mechanic, whatever, we'll figure this out. And so I'm on my way there and I'm like, I don't even know where the starter's at. I mean, I assume it's on the bottom of the engine somewhere. It's
a van, so it makes it even more challenging.
Yeah. Theoretically it's under the hood somewhere.
My battery's under my seat, so it's anybody's guess where this starter is.
Well, and then that was the second question was like, well, where is this? And so my immediate thought was I need to figure this out. So I went to Google and I, searched it. And then I was like, well, wait a minute, what does ChatGPT do? And so it went off in a little bit of a different direction. Right. It wasn't, neither of them were working for me.
Okay.
And I think part of it was, like we were talking earlier, I wasn't giving ChatGPT, I guess, very good information when I asked the question.
Yeah.
It generalized like, oh, you need to disconnect the positive battery terminal, right? And ultimately, my question is how the frick do I get to the positive battery terminal? Because there's a freaking cover on the top of the battery under the seat that prevents you from getting to it.
You could disconnect it under the hood. Did you know that?
You can't actually.
That's where you do the jump, and that's where the two meet up.
You would think that that's actually the case. However, underneath of the seat, it goes through what's called the mega fuse. So there's a 300 amp fuse. Then it splits into 3 separate power line wires. One goes to that jump port and the ABS and all the power supply up in the engine compartment.
Yeah.
And then one goes straight to the starter.
Oh, I didn't know that. I just assumed that was your disconnect because of where the battery is located.
I thought so too. However, it took me 4 or 5 YouTube videos to finally get to one that looked like my van. Yeah. There's tons and tons of information out there. If anybody's listening for transit information, there's a boatload of videos on YouTube from like 2007 through 2018 or 19, probably whatever. In 19, they changed a whole bunch of electronics. And so yours, I should say this, I should preface this with and say, yours may actually have a disconnect under the hood. all of them that I have, it's underneath the seat.
I don't know.
But yeah,
I would
don't
have
either.
to check further into that. I'm making an assumption based off I know that positive terminal there is there for jumping
to jumpstart it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But literally, you got to take the 4 bolts off of the seat, pick the seat up, flip
I
it
know.
over into the passenger seat, and then like take this bracket off, and then the plastic cover that covers the battery up, and then underneath of that is another plastic cover that covers the positive and the negative terminals.
It's so ridiculous that battery being under the seat, because it is not a quick thing to pull that seat off there, by the way.
No,
I didn't think it was.
no, I didn't
personally.
I
I don't know.
I had a couple people that were, a buddy of mine's a Ford mechanic, and he's like, well, all you gotta do is slide the seat forward and you can get to it. And I was like,
No,
I couldn't
I
figure
can't.
out how to get to it.
I can't get to it by
So,
sliding the seat forward.
I'm clearly not as efficient as the Ford mechanic, who probably does this,
yeah,
25
absolutely.
times a week.
Yeah, exactly. Just like I can service a boiler probably in half the time that, you know what I mean?
That
Like,
he could, yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah, exactly.
anyway,
No, it's interesting.
It was interesting to find out how flawed search is in Google, and then when you move over into YouTube and search for something, it is so like mishmashy, random. Like, here, check out this thing about spaghetti.
Right.
I didn't ask about spaghetti. Like,
Right.
why are you sending me videos about spaghetti and cranes? I'm looking for a video about a starter in my Ford Transit van. You know what?
Yeah,
So-
no, you ask about a starter and it's giving you videos on like sourdough
Right.
starters. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, it's
it
just-
is
so
flawed,
YouTube's
but
weird.
ChatGPT isn't perfect either, though.
No, it's not.
Not at all.
No.
I don't know about the other ones. I didn't get into Gemini.
Yeah, I've used it a bit.
I tried it, like the free intro
Sure.
of it a few months back. Like, ultimately, I was able to start doing images with ChatGPT, and that's why I decided to pay for it, because I found value in it. It was helping me when it came to putting images together for the thumbnails for either our YouTube videos or for the Make Trades Great Again YouTube video. You know what I mean? Like, it was just making my day a little easier. And I thought the $20 was worth it on my end. And I've used it for more and more since then.
Yeah.
Hey, we got a DM the other day, and I need to find it in the DMs. I should have had this pulled up already. But it's from our pal EJ Bear on Instagram. And of course, we've met him in person, him and his wife at AHR, remember?
Yep.
I think he's in Idaho, isn't he? Isn't he?
Oregon, Eastern
Oregon?
Yep.
Okay. Let me pull him back up. Sorry, I'm having troubles with my browser
You need
right
an
now.
AI in your browser.
Yeah, it's screwing me up here. He had a neat question, and I know this may be coupled on with the GPT. I hope it doesn't get lost, but I want to bring it up, and maybe we could talk about it again in another episode.
Okay.
He said, what about a topic of dealing with customers that didn't listen to your advice on how to fix their system and keep calling back saying it's still not working? He says, I got an example here. Is oversized equipment with too small of ductwork as they get used over a few years, limit switches wear out and fan motors. Also, coil gets a little dirty. Systems freeze up more regular. Basically, like all the symptoms of those wrong elements that weren't fixed are what's causing further failures. And he's trying to warn his customers of it, but they're less likely to take that on, take his advice.
I think a lot of what we end up with is this whole what the heck was that reporter's name that How to Catch a Criminal?
Exactly.
Where they staged. I don't know. I'm not gonna say that they staged it, because I think they're legitimately found people that were doing poor installs and poor business practice. Some of that falls into what we deal with, what you and I and EJ deal with on a daily basis. As you go out and you meet this new customer that you don't have any interaction with them, right? You don't have any history. and they don't necessarily distrust you because they've called you as a professional to their home, right? So they're hoping for the best, but I feel like there's a lot of times there's like a shield up in front of them. Like, I'm going to take this with a grain of salt. This guy could be bullshitting me, you know?
But let me ask you this. Wouldn't you think that some of that there's more to just that? I mean, I know you're not saying that's the only thing, but you start talking, everybody's in a different position, right? So we've got customers that can afford to fix a problem. We've got customers that can't afford, like they're nervous to call us in the first place.
Yep.
Right. Because maybe even coming out to their house is going to cost them more money than they can afford. So like you couple that onto it. Now we've got anxiety kind of intensified.
Yep.
Maybe they have a bad experience.
Yeah.
Like, is that like not every contractor is bad, but also not everybody gets it right the first time. Like maybe a whole bunch of money is sunk into a problem that doesn't go away. So then now their distrust is built up,
Right.
I guess I don't know what I'm trying to say. I think that there's a lot to it and it sucks basically.
I think most customers have experienced at some point or another in some avenue of service, right? Whether it's a home appliance or TV or whatever, that they've had a technician or a service company that's come in and said, "Oh, you need to replace that. Oh, you need to replace that." And it's this it's like on repeat lately, and I say lately, but it's over the last 10 years, is this, well, we don't fix those anymore. My Milwaukee tools, right? You take it down to the local tool store, the tool repair shop, I got a company here in town that is phenomenal. They can fix anything. And I can take just about any of my tools down there. They're an authorized Milwaukee repair center, right?
Yeah.
And I can go in there and Brad will go, "Hey, no, I'm not going to fix that."
Really?
"What do you mean you're not going to fix it?" He's like, he goes, "It's a $79 tool. My shop rate's $90."
Yeah. Yeah. Just go back.
He goes, "Milwaukee isn't going to pay me for warranty on it."
No.
Right? They're going to pay me $32 or something like that because it's a percentage of the value of the tool. Okay. And he goes, "So it's not even worth doing." He goes, "If you want to send it into Milwaukee for warranty," he goes, "then they can take care of it. But I can't warranty that. I can't even fix it or repair it because you might as well go buy a new one."
I think EJ's up against a problem we see often and warn our customers. We all deal with this same scenario, right? He went into detail about like specific things.
Sure.
We can all point to that. And the problem, like I see a lot is not specific details of how things are installed wrong. I could go into those. I don't need to.
Yeah.
The reality is oftentimes you're standing in front of a heating system, cooling system, ducted, hydronic. I don't care what it is.
Yeah.
And they've had that system. You're there for a reason. Something's not working right, or it's broken. And you do want to tell them like, "Look, this is all wrong. It was never right from the start." But that's such a stupid, as the words come out of your mouth, you feel almost dumb because what you're telling this person is that, in fact, yes, factually, you're probably right. It was wrong from the start, but it has worked at least a little bit for the last dozen years or 15 years or 5 years, and now is the problem. I hate saying that because I start to feel just dumb.
Just
like
greasy.
I know that it sounds stupid, but what I'm saying is true. So like, I feel like I still have to say it. I say it differently now than I probably used to. I used to kind of just say like, "Oh, this is never right, blah, 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 and here's why." Now I'm like, look, things could have been done differently. If we changed things, they probably would, you'd see a better performance, or maybe your operating costs would drop some, but technically it gives us everything a better run at, longer life, that kind of thing.
Yep.
I don't know what to say to the customer that refuses to take that advice.
Call somebody else.
Yeah, look,
And that sucks.
it does. It does.
Yeah. We've had a couple of those over the years, where it's like, "Hey, this is an issue, right? This thing doesn't work. We're repetitively here for this same reason over and over and over again."
Yep.
I'm not telling you that you should replace this just because it's not working. That's not, it sounds like a cop out.
Yeah.
And I kind of go back to that. we've gotten to become, I say almost especially in the HVAC industry. I think that's where I can relate to it the most, because I hear so many customers come back and go, "Oh yeah, this guy came in and said, technician came in and said, we don't work on furnaces that are older than 10 years old." I'm like, what do you mean you don't work on them? Oh yeah, if it's 10 years old or older, we just recommend replacement. Why?
Right.
Like, because, okay, I get it. Okay, that's a stupid question for me to ask why. I know why.
Yeah.
Because it's way more profitable to put in a new furnace than it is to put in a new blower motor. 100% all day long.
Well, and these customers or these contractors are then signing customers on to be,
Sure.
Subscribed clients. Like they're paying a subscription to be in their club and all these things that have benefits. They really do. They have benefits.
Yeah, sure.
It's certainly benefiting the contractor. And no, I don't have a problem with that. I don't. I wish I knew how to pull it off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's the reason too. Like they're making way more money in the future by replacing the system now, which, like as you point out, way more profitable than a couple hours labor and a service call with ridiculously marked up parts.
Yeah. So I mean, that's a conversation that we've had. I've got Miles and Tristan and Rob have all kind of come on and started to learn some of my things. I mean, there's times when I've jumped over a replacement. Like, no, we can fix that. Let's fix it. Let's do this customer a favor. Let's, and are we doing them a favor? Well, I don't know if I can prolong a $10,000 change out for 3 years and say, listen, here's the deal. Your ductwork is poorly designed, right? Your AC's oversized. Your furnace is too big. Here's the case of VJ. We can get you up and running. You need a new limit switch. You need a new fan motor, and we probably need a control board, right? These things are all, $4,000 or, let's say they're $1,800.
Yeah.
Right. That's a steep repair on a 10-year-old furnace that's too big. Are we doing the customer any favor doing that? Well, I don't know. Does the customer have $10,000 to replace the system? Or
Right.
12 or 15? I don't know.
Yeah, but you have to give them the option to do that.
I got to give them that option.
Yeah, I'm up against the absolute inevitable. Right, like just this week it came up.
Yeah.
On a job that you actually went out to with me to basically rebuild a boiler, give it new life. That it's at the time it was 14 years old. Now it's 14 and a half years old.
Right.
And it went for 10 years without any maintenance. And this caused problems. The problems were fixed under the advisement that, like, look, I'm not guaranteeing that this, like, from now on is going to be a new boiler. It just, I'm fixing the problems that were present. They will no longer exist. And with the hopes that this cost, although expensive, will give you a couple more years of operating on this boiler.
Yep.
Elderly lady, limited budget, lots of kids that should be chipping in, that kind of thing. That's none of my business.
Right.
The decision was made to put the parts in and get it back up and running, because this boiler it also makes hot water for, the house, that kind of thing. And it's 14 and a half years old. We get dealing with problems again just this last week. This is 6 months after or so. Then I put the parts in, and now we're like literally saying, like, I mean, I can fix it. I've diagnosed the problem. I've verified that with tech support. They concur that my diagnosis is correct. I can get the parts. And the parts and labor are X amount of dollars, and replacement is 10 times that amount.
Yeah.
You do the math, the 10 times amount is always more. Unless it was $0 to start. So
right. Yeah.
Like it's tough. You do run into equipment that is old and does eventually meet the end of its life.
Yeah.
And
yeah. I mean, all of these appliances turn into a boat, right? It's just, bust out another 1,000. I mean, we were just talking about that last night. You were sent me a picture of the Venturi that's all ate out of this thing.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, yeah, I mean, we can order another Venturi. you know what? In that boiler, you're going to fire that thing up and it's going to run sweet, and it's going to go until something else on it dies that's $1,000.
Yeah, that's kind of where we're at now. Is the major components are not inexpensive.
Right.
They're not all of them have been replaced.
Right.
And given its age, we're probably at the point at which it's just kind of it's inevitable.
I have a church that we've been working with that, I've worked with him for a couple of years, and this system is just garbage.
Because churches get touched by 1,000 different people. Oh, I got a guy.
Well, yeah. So that's the guy is somebody that was part of the congregation at one point who got him the equipment.
Yep.
And then somebody else was part of the congregation and knew how to do, hydronics kind of.
Yep.
And so they've got this system that's got a 10-ton chiller on the roof, 2-stage. They've got 2 massive boilers in the basement, 2 big Wiesmann boilers.
Okay.
That they're right on the same age as you're saying. But however, this is the quirky part. They're like 14 years old, 15 years old.
Okay.
This particular boiler was discontinued like 17 years ago.
Yeah, we saw stuff coming to the U.S. that was already out of kind of circulation, and they just
So I've got these 2 WB 2Bs hanging on the wall that they don't make parts for.
Oh, they don't have parts.
Certain parts don't exist.
Like the controls, they don't have them.
Yeah. Control issues, and
because they didn't make that control, somebody else did.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so the installing contractor fancied himself a controls guy, so they put a Techmar on the wall. And they said, well, we can control this all by 0 to 10. Well, that's true, but Wiesmann doesn't recognize 0 to 10 like Techmar thinks 0 to 10 exists.
Oh.
And so they don't modulate, they don't scale correctly, they don't work properly. There's a mixing valve on the system, but it only talks to one boiler because that's how Wiesmann works. So the other boiler runs and makes hot water sometimes. We're not really sure why.
Oh, a bunch of baseboard in this church?
No, it's all radiant.
Oh, no, really?
Oh, yeah. Well, they went way over the top.
Wow. Does President go like Geo or something then?
Well, yeah. And it's just, I went and did winter startup the other day, right? Because we have to manually change this building over from cooling to heating.
Do you get anxiety when it comes to this? Like job
every time.
Specific? Yes.
I
do just hearing you talk about it.
I found things the other day after this is now the 5th changeover I've done, right? From spring to summer or spring to winter, whatever, summer to winter, and then winter back to summer. The 5th time I've done this changeover. I found something the other day that I was like, wait, what? There's a pump that, okay, let me throw this. This is going to be really awkward to listen to. We've got a boiler supply and return header that go to a buffer tank, right?
Okay.
Prior to the buffer tank, there's 2 T's, one on the supply, one on the return.
Like a bypass?
That goes to a braze plate heat exchanger that goes to the chiller on the roof. Okay, so you have basically
they're using it for cooling too.
Yeah, so basically you would alternate between the chiller or the boiler. Well, if you shut the chiller off, the pump going through the braze plate doesn't shut off. So now you have this big pump that's cranking water
up
between the supply and return that's in between the boiler and the buffer tank.
That doesn't even make sense.
No. So the boiler, and the way I caught it is I'm sitting there watching it and I'm like, why is the return hot? I don't like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, I mean, the
buffer tank's
hot, the return's hot.
Yeah.
But my buffer tank is still cold.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's because it doesn't circulate through the buffer tank if this pump is on. There's no disconnect for the pump. It's all of the pumps in the room are on one breaker.
Yeah, this is why
and I'm like,
shouldn't make stuff up.
God, how long has this been going on?
Since day one.
15 years.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I, open up the J box and, shut the breaker off and unwire the pump and put the wire nuts back on and turn the breaker back on.
Unwire it. Oh my
Disable
God.
2 pumps for the winter. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me.
On the next episode, Andy's church saga. I know, man. I get it. Sometimes you just don't want to be part of it.
Yeah.
For a lot of reasons. And for me, it always comes down to what was done. But like I have to go look at a system today that is a new owner of an existing, so I serviced this boiler with the previous owner. I did not install it. It's an older system. It's actually the one you're WB2. Anyway, this boiler does need to be replaced.
Yeah.
And I'm at a spot where I've kind of been thinking about this for a couple of days because I know it's scheduled and I'm going to do the annual service on it. And I'm having anxiety thinking about how I tell this new owner, you need a new boiler in this place you just bought. I told the last person that 2 years in a row, and it's been getting parts and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to continue to have the same problems. But I know I can't get it out of my head that I'm going to look like the guy that just is opportunistic. But it's, I guess I just have to word it right. What's that?
Bottom feeder, right?
But it's true.
It's true.
It doesn't make it less true that the boiler is still in need. They benefit from a replacement. Put it that way.
Yeah, I think, and to answer, I guess to put more of an answer of how I approach EJ's question, the same question I had at the church, is you literally just have to say, grab the customer and say, listen, hey, we need to have an honest conversation here. Yeah. Here's where I'm at. This is my brain on the inside, right?
Yeah.
Like, you have this system. And I hate saying, here's all the problems.
Yeah.
Vomit this, load of problems onto the customer, because that's the very last thing that they want to hear. Right. And sometimes you have to tell them, like, here's the challenges that I'm up against. These are the issues we have, and this is how they impact you and your comfort and your performance and your utility bills.
Yeah.
And if you can break that down to the customer and say, hey, listen, here's the issues with what we have. We can fix this, right? We could go in, we could throw X amount of dollars to repair what you have. You're still going to have this hippopotamus of a system, that's not shiny and doesn't work great and whatever. I don't mean to throw any shade on the hippopotamus, but anyway, and then at that same time, you can say, we can resolve these issues by doing this, right? A new piece of equipment would solve your problems in this. And sometimes you need to write that out, but sometimes you really just have to have a face-to-face conversation with the customer.
Yeah. I try to do it always that way. Yep.
Yeah. Exactly. This is what it is. Here's the reality of it. Right. And this costs this much and this costs this much, and the ball's in your court. My opinion, go this way, and these are the reasons why.
Yeah. It's tough. I'm going to see how today's job goes. We're going to hit stop on the record because we're over. And Andy, the AI Avenger, I see your name tag.
And Eric's not an electrician.
Not an electrician is my name today.
Yeah.
If you're not watching over on YouTube and you want to, just remember that these episodes go in video form over on YouTube and audio too, by the way. I don't know how that works. But it does. And of course, thank you for hitting us up in the DMs, whether it's over on Instagram or you send us a text message in the podcast app you're listening to now. That's free. If you send us a DM, just hit it up with MTGA. That's how I found EJ's message so quickly. It just made things a lot easier. And then I know why you're sending us a message. Not that I don't want to hear from you otherwise, because I totally do. And so does Andy. And of course, our information is down below in the show description on how to get a hold of us. So there you go. Dude, anything to add?
No, I don't think so.
All right.
Got it.
I'm having fun.
ChatGPT how to get a hold of us.
I was going to say, I'm having fun using ChatGPT. I'm going to probably use it again today. I have no doubt.
That's right.
All right, dude. Have a good one.
Later.